This is When You Were Everything, pages 17 to 23. This is going to be a long one, so feel free to pause and come back to it. Then, July. So we're going back in time, back to the July, to a July time. Evil genius. A genius is a really smart person. Now, Layla stutters, and to stutter means that your speech doesn't come out smoothly. So when you see these repeated consonants, that means she's stuttering. And that might sound like tonight. That's a stutter. Now, I'm not going to do that because I am reading this for students who might struggle to read, and to then make it hard to hear the words isn't really helpful. So you'll see the stutter, know that she does that, but I'm not going to do that because I'm reading this to make the reading easier. "What are you wearing tonight?" Layla asked me. I stretched out on her pale blue sheets. The window was open and the humidity was punishing. Even the creases behind my knees were sweaty. "It's so hot," I said. "What can I wear to be as close to completely naked as possible?" Well, naked means having no clothes on. Layla laughed as she pulled on a long, thin fabric dress. Its pale pink color, delicate and pretty against her sun-kissed brown skin. She lifted her dark, wavy hair from where it was tucked against her back, then shimmied her little new dress shimmy. A shimmy is like a wiggle, like a subtle movement. Her reflection winked at me in her full-length mirror. "I'm sure most of the guys and a few of the girls would love that," she said, raising her thick eyebrows. I rolled my eyes because dating was the last thing on my mind. I was mostly just nervous to be going to my first big high school party. As rising sophomores, Layla and I had been invited to a grand total of 2, and I had skipped the first one earlier that summer because my dad had gotten us tickets to Shakespeare in the Park. Shakespeare in the Park. Shakespeare is that really, really famous English author who wrote plays a couple hundred years ago. And he's such a big thing that theater groups will actually do plays in the park. You can go to the park and you can watch plays. I was only going to this one because Layla was making me. And because Valeria's building had rooftop access that would provide an excellent view of the fireworks. "You have a dress like this, right?" she asked a few minutes later, holding out a thin black thing in my direction. I took the wisp of clothing in my hands, rubbing the smooth fabric between my fingers. A wisp means something that's really thin or delicate. "You own something in black?" I asked, teasing her because black was my signature color, and the majority of her clothes were as light as the walls of her bedroom, lavender and sea foam, shades of powdery pink, pale yellows, and sky blues. "Shut up," she said. "Don't you?" I nodded, though the dress that hung in my closet wasn't nearly as delicate. "So you should wear it tonight." Her mouth was still open, so I knew the sentence wasn't finished. Sometimes Layla's stutter caused her to get blocked so badly that words got stuck in her throat, and no sound came out at all. I waited. She closed her mouth, cleared her throat, walked over to her dresser and tried again. "With these." She pulled out a pair of shiny gold hoop earrings. "And you should put in your contacts. Oh, and let me do eyeliner. You have great eyes, Cleo." I always hated that my name began with one of the hardest consonants for her to pronounce. A consonant is a type of letter. It's the opposite of a vowel. So the vowels are A, E, I, O, and U, so the consonants are everything else. I stepped up to her mirror, holding the dress in front of me. I took my glasses off and stepped even closer to my reflection so I could see my face more clearly. Will anyone even notice my great eyes with all these freckles? What does having great eyes even mean? Freckles are those little spots on people's cheeks, usually around their nose. Yeah, people often get them when they're out in the sun too much. But Layla knew about this stuff in a way I didn't. She cared deeply about aesthetics or looks for as long as I had known her. and she's been wearing at least a little makeup since the first time her older sister showed her how to use mascara wand when we were still in middle school. I pulled Layla's dress on, and it was way too tight. I had curves in every place she didn't, but she refused to acknowledge or accept that we were completely different sizes. Don't know how to party, I said, immediately taking the dress off. Do you think people will be drinking? Layla pulled off the pink dress she was wearing and slipped into a yellow one before wrapping me in a hug. Her voice was soft and raspy or rough, and her hair and skin smelled like sandalwood. She pulled back and looked at me. Cleo, obviously there will be drinking. That doesn't mean you have to drink. I'm not going to. And if some guy tries to make you, I'll kick him. I laughed. It made sense that she smelled like a forest and sounded like the beginning of a wildfire. She had a temper, or she could get angry, and once it was lit, the girl could burn. To take my mind off the party, off the way Layla wanted me to look, and who all might be there drinking, I said, "So I got this email from Novak today." Layla looked at me and cringed. "Why is a teacher emailing you in the summer?" I grinned and flopped back down on her bed. "She's spending part of the summer at the Globe Theatre in London," I said dreamily. I'd been obsessed, or thinking nonstop, with everything about London since I was 12. The tea, the culture, the landmarks, and Layla knew this. My London snow globe was the most prized one in my collection. For something to be prized, it's really, really important. I noticed a blankness on Layla's face, so I added, "The Elizabethan theater originally built by the Lord Chamberlain's men?" Layla blinked. "Shakespeare's Playing Company, Layla. Shakespeare's Globe. Are you kidding me right now? I thought we were friends." Her eyes cleared a little. "Oh, that thing, right." Her mouth opened and closed and opened again. "Okay, so, what did she say that couldn't wait until school started?" I groaned and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling again. So if you're curious about what this globe thing is, it's not a snow globe, it's a theater that was built for Shakespeare, and that's where he put on his plays back when he was doing this a couple hundred years ago. Well, she sent me a bunch of pictures of London and the theater. She said that it's incredible, which, duh, but she also said that there's this young scholars summer school there. I think most of the people who go are older, like about to attend university. That's how Novak said it. I sat up and laughed a little, and so did Layla. But you only have to be 16 to apply, and I guess she told the professor who heads up the program about me, that I'm a Shakespearean expert. Layla finished for me. She lifted her hand and stared at it like she was holding Yorick's skull, and theatrically recited, "To be or not to be," in a bad British accent, and you're not going to get me to try to do accents. So, yeah. This is referencing some of the plays that Shakespeare wrote. We'll hear more about that in a second. "Shut up," I said, throwing the dress I'd slipped out of a minute earlier at her head. She dodged it, and I didn't point out that that's not even the scene where Hamlet holds the skull. "Anyways, you have to apply and be accepted in everything, and they only take a handful of kids each year. But she said you get to see tons of productions or plays, and hang out with the actors, and go to lectures at the theater, and the whole point of it is to discuss how Shakespeare shaped the rest of English literature." Literature is writing. Layla picked up the dress I'd thrown and walked over to me, laying it across my lap. She said, "So, basically your Shakespearean dream." "Gross," I laughed, "but yeah, kind of. It sounds amazing, but I can't apply until September. Novak said she'd write me a recommendation and help me with everything, but she wanted me to start thinking about it now. And I mean, if I get in, this time next year I could be in London." "Your dream come true," Layla said. "Oh, I could come visit you, and maybe we could spend a weekend in Paris with my Aunt Khadija." Yes, I shouted. I pulled a different dress from Layla's closet and stood up, and stuck my head through the hole made from the straps in the hanger, so that the thin fabric fell in front of my body like I was wearing it. Layla danced over to her laptop and put on La Vie en Rose by Louis Armstrong just for me, and we proceeded to twirl around her bedroom for the next 3 minutes, as Layla's smooth voice mixed with Louis's gruff one. Gruff is rough. When Layla sings, she doesn't stutter at all. I was back in front of the mirror with the dress still hanging over my head, and Layla and I were debating or discussing whether I should keep my braids up or wear them down, when Layla's mom pushed the bedroom door open. "Mama, you're supposed to knock," Layla whined. I ripped the dress from over my head and let it fall to the floor. "Hey, Mrs. Hassan," I said. "Hi, Pinky," she said, rubbing her hand over my hair. "Mamuni, what are you two doing?" She bent to kiss Layla's forehead. Mrs. Hassan gave me a Bengali nickname, basically the second she met me. I don't know why I'm Pinky to her, or why Layla's Mamuni, but I love the way it makes me feel warm and wanted. I smile up at her. "I told you, Mama. We have that party tonight, at Valeria's." "That's right," Mrs. Hassan said. She glanced over at me. "Naomi know about this party?" I nodded. Mrs. Hassan and my mother had spoken on the phone almost daily since Layla and I met the summer before middle school, so we rarely tried to put anything over on them. "Good. And there will be parents at this party, yes? I want to call and speak to them." Layla said, "Of course, Mama." She pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and handed it over. I had no idea who was on the other end of the line, because I was pretty sure there wouldn't be parents at this party, but Layla was inexplicably brilliant sometimes. I watched as Mrs. Hassan spoke to someone. She asked about alcohol. She asked about curfew. She asked if boys would be there. And whoever was on the phone gave all the right answers. Mrs. Hassan smiled and nodded, and by the time she handed Layla's phone back to her, she seemed completely confident that we would be attending a chaperoned, boy-free, alcohol-less party. A chaperone is an adult or responsible person that goes with someone who needs some looking after. Layla was an evil genius. "So are we deciding what to wear?" Mrs. Hassan said as she picked up the dress I'd dropped, and her eyes widened the tiniest bit beneath the sheath of her deep purple hijab. "I hope neither of you is planning to wear this undergarment." Layla burst into a fit of giggles, and I was grateful to be as brown as I am. My skin hid most of my blush. An undergarment is your underwear, something you would wear under something else. So she's saying, "You're not going to go out wearing underwear, are you?" "It's a slip dress, Mama, and it's perfect. Cleo would look great in it. But what do you think? Should she wear her hair up or down?" Mrs. Hassan looked like she was considering, and I was dying of embarrassment right there in front of the mirror. "I think," Mrs. Hassan started, looking at the dress. Then her dark eyes found mine. "I think that you, Pinky, are an intelligent, talented, beautiful young woman, and a dress, however thin or short or perfect, won't ever matter as much as your brain." I smiled. "Thanks, Mrs. Hassan." "I think hair up," Layla said, digging her fingers into my braids like she hadn't heard her mother at all.